Have you ever realized that no matter how mature you are, how accomplished you are, just one careless word, one cold look can break something inside you? You act like you're fine, maybe even strong, but there's a quiet part of you that's tired of holding it all together, tired of pretending that nothing bothers you. You tell yourself you're over it. But why does a small moment still hurt so much? Why does someone's silence still echo louder than your own thoughts? You spent years becoming what the world demands: untouchable, unshakable, unreadable. But in doing so, you buried the most fragile parts of yourself. And now you can't tell if you've become strong or just numb. But this is the truth, but you were never taught. The more you avoid pain, the more it shapes you. Not because you are weak, but because the wound you don't want to face becomes the wound that controls you. And maybe you're ready. Be willing to stop running away. Be willing to feel what you've been silent about, not to suffer again, but to finally heal. This is not about a breakup. This is about brokenness. And from there, something really began. You don't choose to run away from your pain. You have been trained to do so, taught to keep your voice even when your heart is breaking, taught to smile, to say you're okay, to stay calm for appearances. And over time, you begin to believe that strength means silence, that feeling deeply is somehow a defect, that pain makes you weak. But that is not true. That makes you human. However, the world is not always welcoming to what is real. So you learn to push it all down: the grief, the fear, the anger, the need. You bury them under ambition, distraction, control. And on the surface, you look fine, even admirable. But living this way comes at a cost, because avoidance doesn't make the pain go away. It just buries it where you can't see it until it starts to seep through everything. The truth is, you are not out of your misery. You just disguise it in the form of fatigue, disconnection, anxiety, like a quiet heaviness that never really goes away. And life has a strange wisdom. It just keeps coming back. It touches places you've been numb to, not to punish you, but to bring you back to yourself. Because what you avoid doesn't go away. It waits. And it comes back, not as a punishment, but as a message. You should never live a fake life. You should live sober. The more you avoid pain, the more it shapes you. But once you see it, really see it, something begins to change. You stop asking, why did they do this to me? And you start asking, why does that affect me so deeply? This is where the illusion begins to fall apart. Because it's never just what they say. It's what it touches. It's the story behind the wound, the story you stopped telling but never stopped believing. Carl Jung once said, "We are not what happens to us, but what we choose to become." And that starts the moment you stop trying to control the outside world and start listening to the inside world. You don't need people to treat you perfectly. You don't need the world to stop hurting you. You need to understand why the world still has power do thing there. Because if it resonates, it means there is something inside that is calling, something buried, something forgotten, something that is true. Awareness does not take away the pain. It sheds light on the pain. It shows you what is yours and what was never yours. And in that space, between the trigger and your response, freedom begins. Not the kind that looks strong from the outside, but the kind that feels unshakable from the inside. You don't need to build walls anymore. You just need to know where is the crack and what lies beneath them. Because the moment you see it, you are no longer controlled by it. And that is the beginning of everything. A lot of what we call pain, it's actually just an old echo that finally finds its way back to you. You think you are reacting to the present with a look, a word, a silence, but you are actually reacting to a memory. a memory that you never realized was still alive inside you. Why can one comment run your day while someone else doesn't care? Because it found the crack. Not a flaw in your character, but an opening in your story. Something unresolved, something unsaid. That moment in your childhood that you ignored but never healed. That moment when you felt invisible and decided you didn't matter. An old voice inside still whispers, "You are not enough." And when life presses against that crack, you don't just feel pain. You feel any time that you never let yourself feel it. Carl Jung said that the outside world only hurts us when we are unconscious, and this is exactly what he meant. The problem is not the circumstances. The problem is where you are not brought to light. You are not too sensitive. You are not weak. You simply still carry within you what has never been fully seen. Pain does not mean you are hurt. It means you are human. And that part of you, the soft, shaky part, is not your flaw. It is your map. Because pain does not enter by force. It comes in through disconnection, through the broken pieces of yourself that you have learned to live without. And as soon as you stop hiding those pieces, the world will no longer have the power to hurt them. So maybe not a crack repair. Maybe listen to what's underneath it. Because what's buried there isn't just pain. It's the path back to wholeness. By now, you may have begun to realize that what hurts you isn't always what's happening. It's what happened, and still not healed. Jung said, "Until you turn your subconscious into your conscious mind, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." And maybe that's why you keep falling into the same relationship, the same emotional roller coaster, the same fight with different faces. You think it's bad luck. You think there is something wrong with you. But it is not. That's your subconscious mind, quietly replaying what you haven't dealt with yet. You believe that your anger just appears out of nowhere, that your sadness is a mystery you can't name, that you're self-sabotaging because you're broken. But you are not broken. You just don't realize it. The part you choose isn't always the part you're conscious of. It's the hidden part. The part that forms when you're young, vulnerable, open, and hurt. It was the child that was gagged, still waiting to be seen. The wound you said is not important, but it never stops bleeding beneath the surface. And the truth is, subconscious, your mind is not your enemy. It is your guide, but only if you are willing to listen. Every pattern, every trigger, every inexplicable fear, they are not random. They are messages, clue. The problem is that you tried to repair the surface without touching the roots. But until you get there, until you step into the darkness within with your eyes wide open, you will continue to call your pain fate. You will continue to blame the world, when all the world does is reflect what lives inside you. This is not about judgment. This is about honesty. Honesty, gentle, unflinching with yourself. Because when you finally turn inward, not to criticize but to understand, that's when the change begins. That's when you stop being controlled by your emotions and start mastering them. And perhaps for the first time, you will no longer be afraid of the dark, because you will realize there is always just you, waiting to be found. By now, you've probably built walls, not out of malice, but out of exhaustion. You're tired of explaining yourself, tired of being left behind, tired of feeling too much, too deeply, too often. So you start acting like nothing is touching you. You call it power. You call it growth. But deep down, you know that you do not heal. You are hiding. Most people do not walk through life with real armor. Instead, they wear masks. The smiles say, "I'm fine." The voices say, "I don't care." But their silence screamed louder than words. Because pretending not to feel does not make you stronger. It just leaves you empty. Real power is different. It's not difficult. It is comprehensive. You don't become invulnerable by paralyzing yourself. You become invulnerable by understanding yourself completely. Even the parts that used to scare you. Fears, insecurity, the shame you think you have to bury to be loved. When you bring them to light, they will lose their grip, because what has been fully seen is no longer can control you anymore. And then you stop reacting, you start to respond. You stop being defensive. You start select. That's what real power feels like. Not cold, not closed off, but focused. Because when you stop running from what's inside you, nothing outside can beat you. You don't need thicker armor, you need deeper roots. From the very beginning, you have been taught to treat pain as a problem, to hide it, calm it down, ignore it until it goes away. Crying is weakness, anger is dangerous, sadness is inconvenient. So you learn to suppress, to keep smiling when your world is falling apart, to numb, to distract, to endure. But here's what no one tells you. Pain is not here to break you. It is here to break down what is not you. Jung said, depression is like a woman dressed in black. If she shows up, don't shoo her away. Invite her in, have her sit down, and listen. Because pain doesn't knock on your door for no reason. It's not chaos, it's communication. Every pain you ignore becomes a message you miss, and the longer you avoid it, the bigger it gets. If the sadness you are running away from. What if brokenness is not your end, but your beginning? Growth does not happen in comfort. The transformation does not take place in light. It begins in the dark, when you finally stop running and towards what hurts. That's where change begins. Not when you fight the pain, but when you ask it, what are you trying to show me? Yes, growth is painful, but falling asleep is even more painful. Because the more you ignore the whispers of your soul, the more your body, your life, your relationships start screaming. Then maybe it's time, not strong in the way the world teaches you, but strong enough to feel, to grieve, to release, to awaken. Because sometimes the wound is the door. Still suffering? It is not the enemy. It is an invitation to you to be whole. There will be a moment, quietly, undeniable, when pretending doesn't work anymore. When the image you have carefully preserved begins to fade. The head is like a costume, and the life you build around it feels strangely alien. That's where the journey begins. Jung called it personalization, not self-improvement, not to be a person better, but a person really. It's the process of remembering who you were before the world told you who you should be. Before the mask, before the performance, before you traded authenticity for acceptance. You don't go down this road to be impressive, you go down this road to complete. And perfection isn't always beautiful. It's crude, chaotic, not comfortable, because it requires you to forget, to break through false protections, the roles you have played, the smile you forced, the silence you have kept. It means facing the parts of yourself you've kept hidden, anger, shame, tenderness, truth. And no matter how painful it is, you also begin to realize what you think is power is actually just armor. And what you think you are just is survival. Personalization eliminates all that, not to leave you empty, but to reveal something deeper, the core beneath the chaos, the ego beneath the story. That is the center Jung was talking about, where inside you don't need validation, no need to show, unfazed when life shakes the surface. Because it is no longer hidden. It is no longer afraid of being seen. This journey is not easy. Most people never do. But if you do, you will not become invulnerable. You will become unshakable. Not that you're not affected, but because you are no longer divided within. Finally, you're making me, and that is power. Many people walk through life wearing armor, protected, ready for the next shot. They think that if they can be strong enough, then nothing can touch them. But the truth is, what protects you is not resistance. It's awareness. Because strength has no clarity, only tension. It cracks under pressure. But clarity that doesn't falter. Clarity that sees through the noise. When you understand your wound, no one can use them against you. When you own your story, no one can twist it to hurt you. You still feel. You are still bleeding. But you no longer give up on yourself to end the pain. You don't react out of fear. You react from presence. That is what Jung meant when he said, "What you resist remains, what you accept transforms." You spend too much energy fighting your emotions, struggle with the past, fight the parts of you that you were told not to express. But what if you stopped fighting? What if you allowed yourself to see, not just pain, but also the wisdom contained within it? Because consciousness is not cold. It is not a separation. It is the warmth of being fully awake within your life. It's knowing who you are, not in theory, but in fact. And once you know that, once you have sat down with each part of yourself, not to fix it, but to witness it, then there will be nothing left to protect. You become still. Not because nothing happened to you, but because nothing can pull you out of yourself anymore. You rise, not by force, but by depth, not by wall, but by root. And that is the last shield, awareness. You've spent so much time trying to get stronger, calm down, more control. But what you really need isn't more power. It's awareness. Not the screaming kind, but the seeing kind. See through the masks, through the noise, through the stories you've been told and the stories you tell yourself. You don't need to change who you are. You need to remember who you were before fear taught you to hide. Because of the pain you are running away from is not your enemy. It's the part inside you that's still waiting to be embraced. And when you finally stop, when you look inward instead of outward, something will change. You are no longer pursuing healing. You become it. You no longer seek security in others. You find it in your own presence. That's the moment you become untouchable. Not because life stops hurting, but because it can no longer find the wound you left behind. And in that silence, you will know nothing and no one will ever hurt you again, the way you used to hurt yourself. Because the world does not change, only you change.